You're checking out the Investor Shed podcast with Nick Beveridge and Jeremy Kitchen. They're on the path to financial freedom and they're taking their community with them. Stay tuned for the best free real estate investing advice on the internet.
Welcome to the Investor Shed podcast, season 2, episode 24. Today we've got Jeremy Kitchen as a co-host, don't we?
We do every single day. You're gonna have a hard time getting rid of me, Nick, unless you fire me. Good luck. How's it going?
Well, I am on a firing tangent lately.
Pew, 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 pew.
No, not really.
Speaking of tangents,
Yes.
we do have Justin Cambra on, who does not go off on a tangent, but he provides a lot of really cool info. Justin's a real estate agent and investor based in the Seattle Bellevue area, doing a lot of cool things. He's done a lot of Midwest investing. We're going to hear all about all of his units, his trials and tribulations thereof, and how he's getting started in the real estate agent world and allowing him to wear a couple hats. So it's pretty cool stuff.
Yes, we do talk about wearing multiple hats and how much it could actually improve your real estate investing business. So everyone, grab your corned beef omelets and let's dig in.
Nom, nom, nom.
Welcome back to the Investor Shed podcast for season 2, episode 24. We've got Justin Cambra in the house. Is it Cambra or Cambry? Cambra. Okay, I said it correctly the first time. Thank you. And Jeremy, good morning.
Hey, man, how's it going today?
Good.
Good.
It's Monday morning. It's time to get to work. But before we go to work, let's have a discussion.
I love it. Yeah, Justin, thank you so much for joining us today. We definitely appreciate you jumping on the Investor Shed with Nick and I. Why don't you go ahead and just tell everyone a little bit about yourself before we get going, and then we'll kind of get into your investments and the things you like doing from there.
Perfect. Well, thanks for having me on as a guest. Always like getting out and doing these podcast guest appearances such that I can, one, share my story, but two, more importantly, try to inspire other people to help get out of that rat race and get into the career that they want or the life they want.
I love it.
So in terms of, I'll hop right into the investing. I started investing back, but just over 6 years ago. And I started like how most people do. I did the house hack. I actually still live in that house hack. Still live in a 1-bed, 1-bath. And that was my first one in Seattle. And then as I, at the time I was working at Amazon and I had all this RSUs, which are restricted stock units, and Amazon's stock was skyrocketing. So I had this tidal wave of money coming at me. And I was like, Eminem, one shot, one opportunity. So I was like, I got to start buying some more real estate to get out of the rat race. And so I ended up not buying my next one in Seattle, but going somewhere where was a little bit more cash flow, which since you guys are in Idaho, you might know Eastern Washington and Yakima. So my first investment property was an 11 unit after the house hack in Yakima, Washington. And so got that one done, and then more RSUs coming, and I was like, man, I'm not seeing anything cash flowing in Seattle or in Yakima. At the time I was in finance for Amazon, and so it's very easy for me to analyze these properties. And then I was listening to Bigger Pockets, and I heard about this guy in LA area. I don't know the guy's name. I'd have to go back to the episode, but he was talking about in Milwaukee you could buy these properties for under 100,000, and I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. So I used to work at Cargill, which is an animal or agricultural company, and that I worked in the animal nutrition division, and a lot of my buddies there, every year we'd get together and do this golf trip. And if you're familiar with Wisconsin, it's called Wisconsin Dells.
Okay.
And so we'd meet up in Madison and go there, and normally I'd fly into Chicago, but after I heard that guy, I was like, why don't I fly into Milwaukee and check it out? And then once I checked it out, I was like, this is like Seattle with one less zero at the end for a duplex. So instead of $600K, it was $60K.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah. Wow. So this was, you said 6 years ago-ish?
Yeah, that first one I bought was 2017 in Milwaukee.
Okay, 2017. So 2017 was when you first kind of started investing. At that time, did it feel like it was kind of at the top of the market? Did you think about that much at all? Because I remember I bought, like, when I bought my personal house in 2017. I thought, man, I'm buying at the top of the market, but if I just stick with it for a while, um, I got a good interest rate. I'm just going to do it anyway. But it felt weird at that time. Didn't it feel? I don't know if you can remember this, but did it feel like we were kind of at a top of the market at that point?
The answer to it is yes and no. Yes, in terms of Seattle. So when I bought the house hack, it was listed at 450, and I put a contingent or escalator up to 600K.
Okay.
So white hot in Seattle. Then I went to Milwaukee, and then it was like, I mean, there's just so much supply there that I was just scooping stuff up left and right. It was that it didn't seem like the top of the market. And even when I was looking at it, I went back to, '06 to '08, and it was in 2017 when I started buying Milwaukee. '06 and '08 were up here. I don't know exact number, call it 100K, but then it was only like 60K when I was buying. So I was like, oh, there's still definitely more upside.
Okay, that makes sense. So, take another step back if you don't mind. What got you actually interested in real estate?
So I was trying to find a way to, at the time, I was wanting to get out of working at the corporate world, right? And so the fastest path out is cash flow. And so I was like, what can I do that like an average Joe could figure out? And started, stumbling around and looking on the internet. And I was like, oh, you know, I liked Monopoly when I was growing up. And I was like, it's going to be real estate. And so then I just dove in all things real estate pretty much since 2016.
That's awesome. I do want to kind of go back a little bit on your financing in Amazon background. Obviously, you said that allows you to analyze properties really well. What do you think allows you to do that so easily now that you have that financing background? Like, how do you analyze a property to make it work with you, knowing you have a finance background?
So today, like if I'm buying my kind of traditional 2 through 8 unit in Milwaukee,
Hmm.
I've just done so many reps that it's like 30 seconds kind of thing. Because I can look at address, the rents, and condition of the building with the price, and I'll know right away, oh, I need to dive deep or keep scrolling. And then when I actually get to it, I use the same spreadsheet, whether it's a single family or a 16 unit, and use that as my model to plug it in. And it's an old model. It's like I got it off of the internet in 2016. It's an old bigger pockets one. It's just that I'm used to it. I know where the numbers are at, and just plug and chug, and it's pretty fast.
Awesome. And so are you mainly investing in Milwaukee right now, or are there other areas you're looking at?
So current portfolio is Washington, Wisconsin, and Michigan. But by the end of next week, I'm buying two Aplexes side by side in Des Moines, Iowa. So
Oh, nice.
I'm
Okay.
putting another state on the map for real estate investing.
Cool. What's been your favorite state to invest in so far?
I'm definitely biased towards Milwaukee,
Hmm.
but my initial market research on Des Moines is very promising. You know, the thing is they're still relatively low purchase price, but what I'm seeing there's not as much supply, and they're in terms of a housing, and then the demand for the housing is actually on the rise. So population increase, job growth increase, the wage increase, and so what I don't get in Milwaukee and in Detroit area are those things, right? The good underlying economics of a market. You do definitely get lower price per unit in those cities, but it appears that you kind of get a best of both worlds in Des Moines.
Awesome.
What's the main like industry like in Milwaukee? Is there one? Is there a main industry?
So Milwaukee has manufacturing is big in that area. Kind of when you get into the Midwest, there's a lot of manufacturing. There's healthcare, uh, insurance. It is relatively close to Chicago, so theoretically people could take the train and commute into Chicago as well. So there's not one like it's not like Seattle where right now it's heavy tech based. It's kind of a hodgepodge of industries.
Okay. So for those that are map challenged, how far away is Milwaukee from Chicago?
I want to say it's around probably an hour and 15 minutes.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's really close.
Nice. So you're out in Milwaukee right now. How many units do you have, Justin, by the way? It seems like you've got a lot of units going for yourself.
Yeah, the overall right now it's at 105 units across 40 properties, and then, like I said, I'm buying these two aplexes, which I'm going to do a reverse 1031. So net net, I'll be at 38 properties and 116, no, 111 units come next week.
What state? Because obviously you are doing out of state investing. What state has the best landlord friendly laws? I've heard a lot of Midwest. I mean, it's going to vary depending on state by state, city by city. But for as far as bang for your buck, is it still Milwaukee that you're getting the best returns for your money?
Yeah, for returns,
Hmm.
it was two questions there. In terms of landlord friendly, I'm I'm in a lot of blue states, so not necessarily friendly to me. So, which is why, like, I'm learning more about Des Moines, but I'm
Hmm.
like selling off some of mine in Milwaukee that I originally bought back 2018. And I'm like, why don't I scale up? Why don't I diversify out of more C class into even C to C plus, is better. And I'm hoping that
Yeah.
Des Moines pans out to where, you know, if there is a recession, if I can get out of that C class or diversify out of it, I'm trying to stabilize that portfolio, which is more important once you retire out of your W-2 life.
Gotcha.
So what got you interested in Des Moines?
For me, a friend of mine claims to fire on Instagram, Jose Linares, connected with me about he was doing a syndication out there.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And so I sat in on the syndication thing and I was like, wasn't really ready to do a syndication, but I was like, man, these numbers, I was just surprised at the growth of the jobs
Hmm.
and the population there. I was like, this is sweet, and the low dollar per unit there. So that's really what attracted me. And then it's just the power of social media because I actually own a property in Washington. We call it Des Moines. In Iowa, they call it Des Moines,
Okay.
but
Yep.
it's the
Yep.
same city. And I posted
Yeah.
about my Washington property, and there's a lady that I know that used to work with me at Amazon, and she's like, "Yeah, I'm looking to sell my property in Des Moines." And that's
Oh,
how
nice.
I was like, I listened to the syndication, then I heard about or connected with her about her property that she's looking to sell, and I'm like, all right, let's go all in and let's check it out.
I love it. And earlier before the show, we kind of talked a little bit about how your plan on acquiring these properties actually goes. Can you run us through how that actually goes when you're offering purchase price on a property?
Yeah, so like Nick, I'm a real estate agent with Keller Williams, and so what I do 100% focus right now, is, because I retired from Amazon into real estate.
Hmm.
And I have my own real estate portfolio, and then I'm an agent as well. And my number one thing is I get in front of sellers. That's all I want to do. When I'm in front of a seller, I'm trying to give them basically a smorgasbord of options. Me personally, I'm trying to buy it as an investment, buy it fix and flip, buy it wholesale. If that doesn't work, then I swap and put my agent hat on and then talk to them about an agent. But generally speaking, I give them three options at all times. Here's your cash price, walk away, get your money. You want more, I can pay you a higher price over time, seller financed. And then generally speaking, the highest would be retail. Now, depending on the condition, that'd be retail after they fix it up or just retail in the condition it is today.
Sure. As is or after repair value depends, right?
Right.
And that's what I love being a real estate agent and an investor, being in that kind of position. Because anytime you're in front of a seller, it's a rare circumstance where if you're an investor and an agent, you can help them no matter what. Like you don't have to pass them off to anybody else. It's like because most like wholesalers that meet with a seller, there's like a small chance that they're actually going to be able to help them, and the only way they can help them is if they basically take their property for 60% of the value.
Hmm.
But as an agent, you can give them options, and if you're really good, there's no reason they have to deal with anybody else. You can buy their property for a discount, or you can sell it for a premium. Um, and it's kind of nice. It's like having your cake and eating it too.
Yeah.
And it is possible. You just have to be good at knowing what your options are and what your abilities are. Um, but I just love being able to have that, all of the tools on you to be able to help somebody to what they really need, not just what you need.
Right.
Because I feel like if you're only an agent or if you're only an investor, unfortunately you're there to see if you can be helped only. And you're not there to just solve their issue, because if you have all the tools, you could just solve their issue. If you're only one or the other person, your influence may not be as authentic as you want it to be.
Exactly. And what I do is I lead with value. So like I don't like when I'm talking to them, I'm a consultant. I'm your real estate consultant. So
Mhm.
I just had this one last week. I was using Vulcan 7, calling for sale by owners. Started talking to the owner. Here's me as my investor hat is on. I'm walking him through how I would buy it. And then I was trying to get more info on seller financing. And then I go, hey, based on these numbers, I can tell you it's not going to work for me, and it's not going to work for anybody who would try if you tried to seller finance it to your HELOC when it went from 4 to like everyone's got right now to like 7.5 on a HELOC.
That's where mine's at.
Your debt structure is not conducive unless somebody brought 40% down, which then nobody would do. They would just go get a regular loan. And so I'm like, I'm going to shift to my agent hat, and then let's talk about how we can get you the best price for this property.
Nice. So are you specifically targeting for sale by owners or fully paid off properties then?
I do what's called FRBO, FSBO, expired,
Mm-hmm.
circle prospecting. So all 4 of those buckets: for rent by owner, for sale by owner. Both of those I love because if I can buy direct, I have a high propensity to get seller financing. So me without a W-2 anymore, and it is not as easy to get loans. So like the last slug of properties I've been buying have all been seller financed. Even the one that I'm buying next week is going to be a subject to deal, such that it's based on my credit worthiness, but there's no bank involved. And so I love that freedom, flexibility to negotiate anything as long as the seller and I are on the same page.
Gotcha.
I just thought of something that might be cool for us, Justin. If we actually brought physical multiple hats to our listing appointments or seller appointments that just said investor on one, realtor on another,
Mm-hmm.
Right.
and you show up without the hat on, but you're like, which one do you want me to wear?
Exactly. And they appreciate it. Yeah, because like that one example I was saying is like I shifted into agent mode, and then I talked to him for a little bit, and then you probably realize that I'm now as an agent. He goes, yeah, I realized that it's shifted over after I talked about the HELOC
Mm-hmm.
cost structure. And it's totally true. And it's when you lead with value, you know what hat to wear.
Right.
And at the end of the day, like if I can give them the most money, they're going to want to do that deal. And then I just need to make sure I structure it to where it makes sense for both of us.
Sure. And it's not always about the money for your sellers, honestly. I mean, we've seen seller finance deals like we're like, hey, we just need to pay off our car. We just need to pay off our student loans. Like, if we can help solve a problem for you, that's going to help us and it's going to help you at the same time. And obviously, what we're looking out for is their main concern when we're doing any of that stuff. So it's good to give them options, good to check some more boxes for sure. I do want to talk a little bit, Justin, about you switching from W-2 into complete entrepreneur mode. So how long have you been not a W-2?
I'm coming up on 6 months. So Labor Day 2022. So September 2nd, 2022. That was my last day at Amazon.
Okay.
And then, for about 2 months, I just kind of traveled around the world. And then I started getting into the agent stuff to have this like one-stop real estate consultant setup. So I've been doing that for about 4 months now.
Cool. And how has that transition been for you? Have you been do you feel like you've been doing better? Do you feel like you're thriving? Are you happy to be broken free of the W-2 chains?
What I've been telling to everybody is the highest of highs and the lowest of lows when you're an entrepreneur. But I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world. It's hard to describe unless you're there, but when you wake up and you're like pumped up, like today I'm pumped up because I'm talking to sellers, I'm doing this podcast interview. There's no obligation. I'm doing this because I want to do it. So that the feeling has just changed everything and the way I operate and the way I live.
Mm-hmm.
Now, with that said, obviously the consistent paychecks that were coming in are not there anymore. And, when you own properties that are in the north, and you guys are in Idaho, so you know that it gets cold and it snows. And I had a lot of turnover, a lot of people not paying, and a lot of expenses going out. So I had set aside like 250 liquidity, and very quickly 100K poof gone in a couple months from all this going on. So I'm like, so that's what I'm saying is like you have the high highs and the low lows. So it's like, um, but you have to like burn your boats and go all in. If there's one thing I would have changed is that uh, I focused kind of like a marathon. I went exactly 26.2 miles, and then I flopped at the end. At the end, when I didn't spend any time on like what would it look like 26.2 miles and beyond, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's one thing I would have changed is like, okay, how would I structure my life? Just from a fact of like, because I screwed off for like 2 months, and then okay, I didn't have any schedule or anything, and it took me a while to kind of get back to, you know, having a scheduled fixed times, doing certain things to help drive my real estate business and my agent business forward. So, so there's a lot of different things I had to learn going into post W2 life.
I want to talk about that a little bit more, if you don't mind,
Yeah.
because I think it's one of the biggest transitions ever to go from, the majority of your adult life, I'm assuming, you've had this extreme accountability partner of a W-2 job where you have to show up or you're fired, right?
Right.
Like you got to show up at a certain time, you got to do a certain amount of production, and and you have these daily requirements where you have your boss or whoever it is, you have accountability that you have to show your worth to, right? Almost your whole adult life. And then I've been an agent for 12 years now, so I see a lot of agents get into this business, and they just that's one of the biggest things that they struggle with is there's no longer this accountability partner out there telling them when to show up and what to do, and it is super hard for a lot of newer entrepreneurs to stay consistent about being on, treat it like a job, because it is a job still. It's just you don't have anyone telling you, hey, you got to be in the office by 8. If you're in the office by 8:35, everything's fine, but you're still late. You're constantly letting yourself down. Maybe not you personally, but I see this with a lot of agents. They they go into this vicious cycle of bad habits because they no longer have this accountability of the time clock or somebody telling them they need to do this amount of production. So tell me, what has that been like after you goofed off for a couple of months, getting into a rhythm, and what does your ideal day look like?
Got it. Yeah, it was as you were talking there, it made me think of Michael Jackson because, I didn't have we used to call him Uncle Jeff, so Jeff Bezos. Basically it was making sure that I was doing the work. So now it relates to I'm talking to the man in the mirror. That's the guy that's going to be getting me through and holding me accountable. And so, which is hard, you know. You're Keller Williams, I Keller Williams. They have tons of training, bold, ignite.
And it's almost impossible to hold yourself accountable long term consistently because you're a human, you almost need to pay somebody else to do it for you.
Right. And through this training, what I've realized there's what I like to do and what I need to do. Sometimes they're the same, but not always. So I love talking to sellers. And if you have a seller, whether you buy or you're going to list or whatever, that's more guaranteed revenue. And so now you were asking me like, how do I structure my day? So in the morning, I do lead gen. That's the calls for sale by owner, expired, sphere, that kind of stuff. So I'm doing that from 8 to 9. And then how do I keep myself accountable? Through I'm in Springboard to Wealth with Thatch Wen, his mastermind. And I have a friend of mine in there that every day, I'm doing my calls on my laptop. We then have on our cell phones a Google meeting session where he's watching me make calls and I watch him make calls. That's how we hold ourselves accountable. And then I generally do the meetings in the afternoon. So call, trying to set meetings in the morning. And then I do kind of busy work and investing and all that kind of midday. And then afternoon, I'm trying to get out and get in front of the sellers and do those appointments. And that's kind of my general. And then as an agent, they're not as much 9 to 5. It's kind of the whole week because if you're dealing with buyers like this last weekend, you're working on the weekends because that's when they have the time free.
Yeah, the unfortunate thing about this business is that you never feel like you're done or satisfied or you've completed a project. You know, with most jobs, it's like you're cranking out widgets all day long, and then you can clock off and go home and it's off your mind. The unfortunate thing about being a real estate agent is that it just never stops. It's always on your mind. You could have clients that you're dealing with for 7 years, and they're always calling and texting, and it's something that you just have to get comfortable with, that this will never stop, and you just got to put your own parameters on when you're going to jump in and jump out, and you almost have to, like, not look at your phone until a certain time in the morning, and then when you come home, maybe turn the phone off or have a separate cell phone that you use for personal.
Right.
And I know you're newer, you're only 6 months into this, so you've got to be as responsive as you can, right?
Exactly. Hmm.
But have you experienced any mental break yet? Um,
Not yet. I'm, you know, I'm in the honeymoon phase, right? This is all fun to me, because like I don't have to do it, but I love to do it. And you were talking about how do you accountability. For me, it's like I had to come up with a new goal because like when you hit that first goal, you got to have something bigger to carry forward. And so, you know, my new goal is to get my girlfriend retired.
Oh, cool.
And so I got to generate more income, and to get more income, i.e., more assets, I need more agent business to buy more assets. So the faster I get that flywheel going, the faster that I give her the opportunity to retire into the business. She's great in marketing, so I'd love to have her do the marketing side and just get me in front of sellers all day. So that's really what helped start turning that ship around of like, all right, now let's get back on schedule. How many people I need to talk to? How many meetings do I need to have if I want to get those assets to get the goal of getting her retired?
Awesome.
Awesome. And one more thing. So, when you jumped into this, obviously, I'm assuming you have some passive income with your rentals, right?
Hmm.
Is it enough to support your lifestyle if you didn't even want to show up to the office?
So the way it is today, so like my gross number right now, I was just looking it up before I got here. It's close to 90,000 of rents come in. Now the asterisk there is if they pay you
Right.
and they're occupied, right? And so right now I'm probably in the tune of around 80K actually coming in off season on some of my short-term rentals. So the short answer is like, is it fire? Yeah, I don't need to like work, but you don't want to be fire. You need to be fat fire, meaning like when you can legit just check out and like spend money and not have to look at how much is being spent. That's where I want to get to. So that's why I'm like, if I go big into the agent side to generate cash to buy more assets, kicks off more revenue or more passive income, then I can hit fat fire because that's where you want to be. That's when you can, hey, tomorrow you want to go somewhere and you can go to Europe or whatever country you want to get to as long as you have a passport.
Now, do you have a rough idea what your operating expenses are like every month with the rental portfolio?
That's what I'm working on right now. So I'm in process of shifting my bookkeeping over and into, if you guys are familiar with Profit First,
The book?
the book.
Okay,
Yeah.
yep. I haven't read it, but it's on my list.
Yeah. It's because that's what I need to do. When I was at Amazon, all this money is coming in from Amazon and then these 2 times a year, big chunks of stock, right? And the good part about that, a lot of money coming in. The bad part about it, it was covering up a lot of sins because like I would just buy. Bank account comes up, I go buy, and then it kind of comes down. So now I got to be more diligent about setting aside profit, setting aside tax and insurance and tax for me to pay, but then property taxes, right? Because it's over 100K just in property taxes. So
Jeez.
that's why I'm shifting into this Profit First book to where I know exactly what it is. That's my number one weakness right now. And if that's something I would have changed starting, back in day one, is had more a tighter um, operations in terms of bookkeeping, because that's what I need to fix for like ASAP.
Yeah. And that's something I don't know if you intend to grow like a real estate team someday or anything, but something a lot of real estate agents don't really comprehend or understand is like the difference between an operating expense and cost of sales. And that's something that I think, as a newer agent, you should really kind of have a firm grip on right from the start and start keeping track of your expenses and making sure you're keeping it separate. What are your cost of sales and what are your actual operating expenses? And try to stay within. There's a great book, The Millionaire Real Estate Agent. Then they have an ideal or chart of how your financial sheets should look like. Have you gone through that much yet?
I haven't, but I'm it's on Audible, so I've been listening to it.
I'd recommend the book, like the actual physical book for this part.
That's what after I started listening to it, I was like, this is getting too like tactical to where like I need like tangibility to it. And then also, we're talking a lot about Keller Williams, but they talk about your ideal team portfolio, the first person you hire. And I think if you have 7, you can create a team. That'd be my end game because like, you know, I, I want to be able to travel once both of us are out of the rat race. We want to have that time. So I want to have a team that is doing all that. So by the end of the year, like start adding people into my team and then build off of that.
I do want to circle back just a little bit. So obviously, you said over the winter time, Justin, you had about $100,000 in expenses, give or take. Is there anything you think you could have done to prevent that, or is there anything going forward there you can patch those wounds a little bit better for next time?
So probably the first one and easiest one is that, you know, hindsight being 2020, I shouldn't have done this. So I had a review with most of my properties are in Milwaukee. Roughly 90 of the units are there. And I went with the person that's in charge of renewals, and I was like, we got to push these rents up, right? And
Hmm.
so like, and there's some where I've recently bought that are pretty under market. So in hindsight, when you are leaving the W-2, flat to very small rent raises, which would then decrease unit turns, which decreases vacancy, which decreases the cost to fix them up. That was my big aha post facto. So the other thing is like, if you're very weighted into a cold area,
Hmm.
these are things that you need to have more reserves and plan ahead for it. Probably not an issue in Florida, but maybe it's flooding in Florida.
I think what you just said there, if you can back up, something so important that a lot of investors should really pay attention to. If you do acquire like a larger portfolio or something like that, bumping up the rents to market rate that quickly, probably not the best idea because you'll probably wind up with a lot more vacancy and it might actually hurt your bottom line more than it will help it over time. But just like you said, steady to flat rental increases for the people that are paying, obviously. Get rid of the people that aren't paying.
There's a fine balance of that. Specifically, there's this one property I bought actually January of 22. It was my largest purchase at the time. And I want to have a couple partners in. So it was like 1.1, 1.2, two side by side eightplexes, and it was you know quite a bit more work than we thought. And the reason why we're pushing the rents is there's a debt service coverage ratio requirement on that property. So if we didn't start actively pushing them, now when we're a year in, they're going to want our financials. And then, so I have to show we're not going to hit it if we expense all of it. If we
Right.
capitalize it, different story. But I have to show them, hey, we needed to hit 1.2. Here's what we're doing. Here's a good narrative that can say rents are increasing. We've increased the quality of the units. The silver lining on this that we are lucked out on is that we bought at 845 a unit
Hmm.
for rent. We were trying to hit 950, ideally get 1,000. We're renting them right now 11 to 1,200. So yeah, that's expensive. They're large units. Like some of these are 10 to 15 a turn, and we've turned half of that building over. So it the good news is once these are all stabilized, and we're even at 1,100, this property is going to be worth so much more in such a short amount of time. It's just that we've had to feed the beast to get to that point.
Interesting. Yeah, yeah. And just kind of going off that a little bit too. So, like you said earlier, you do really well at analyzing deals, specifically in this market because you know this market, right? You've done this before. If somebody wasn't in this market or somebody was interested in out of state investing, what steps do you think they should take in order to analyze a deal the correct way?
What I tell people is there's two things, because there's analysis and then there's analysis paralysis. So I tell everybody within 30 to 90 days, you're going to have 80% of what you need. And then the rest of it is from what I call live ammo. Like you've got to get in theater, you got to be putting offers in and getting that response from sellers. So first, get in, dig in. And then second is on Bigger Pockets. They used to say this all the time. I think they said like if you analyze 100 deals, you'll have it down pat. It's probably less than that. It's probably more like 50. So get whatever spreadsheet you want. Um, you can get super fancy like the Bigger Pockets calculator, or you can create your own. It's very simple. There's not that many inputs. The keys is to start taking properties and consistently doing it. And depending on how fast you want to get out of your rat race would determine how fast you need to do it. If you want to get out now, you need to be doing these every day. If you're looking at 5 to 10 years, set a goal for one or two a week. But in that spreadsheet, running it through, see what the returns would be, and then bouncing in a couple of inputs you'll need will be from your agent in terms of purchase price and like is this a good area to invest, and then a property manager from an ongoing operation cost. What's the property management fee? Who pays utilities? Is it build back? Is it the landlord? What's the dollar per month per unit?
Hmm.
Making sure that the inputs that you're putting in are accurate. And then what ends up happening is that very quickly you see areas within whatever market that you're in that will cash flow. And then from there, then you start putting in offers to see if you can secure one of those assets.
I love it. That's good stuff. Anything you want to add to that, Nick?
Yeah, I was just curious on your rental properties. Do you have partners on all your properties, or is it mostly just you? And how are you able to fund down payments and all that? If you don't mind getting into that.
Perfect. I know that I use this term evolution of an investor. And so when I was getting into the game, like I mentioned, I was at Amazon and you know RSUs were coming in, and I was making more than I should have because of the stock price. So the first 19 properties I bought by myself, cutting the checks, depending on it. The house hack was, FHA. So like 5% down to like say 25% down on these investment ones. Then of that, some of them I owned in my retirement from my previous jobs. I rolled into a self-directed IRA and then moved it into a solo 401k. So I own 3 outright properties in there. Once no matter what, if you're an investor, you're going to run out of money. So around number 20, I was like, I think a couple years in, and I tell everybody about real estate, and then people are like, "Hey, man, the next time you need help, I want to get in on a deal." And then I was like, "Okay, perfect." So then I did 4 different partnerships, each one of them slightly different. As I, at first I was like, "Oh my God, somebody wants to partner with me!" I was so excited, and I basically gave everything away for free. And then now when I do partners, it's like I have 0 money in and I need to be 50%. Otherwise, I don't even want to. It doesn't make sense for me.
Yeah, I know those struggles. Yeah.
That's how you learn as you go. So I went from buying personally or through my solo 401k. Then I got into some partnerships, and then I got into creative financing. Now with creative financing, there is no bank involved. So, I was getting low down payment stuff, less than 5% type down payments.
Hmm.
So you can buy a lot of properties with low down if you structure the payments right. So then I went into that phase, and then I went through a phase of, man, the market rise. I was able to do, I think I got like 250-ish cash out refi. All right, there's no more money to go buy.
Hmm.
And then now what I'm into is I bring on debt partners. So in January, I bought a property. I have a debt partner that came into the deal. She financed the down and the rehab. Rehab's already done. We got a tenant in, actually higher rent than I projected. We're just waiting the 90-day seasoning to do a DSCR loan. Then I'll pay her off and I'll own this property ideally at $0 into it, i.e. a burr, which I was talking about Springboard to Wealth and Thatch when he's like, you got to be doing the burrs, man. So that's how you can doing the down theoretically would be zero, so it's infinite, right?
Yeah.
So my goal is always to lower the down and stretch that out as far as possible.
That's a really good way to do the burr, obviously. Like, we're up in North Idaho. We had immense appreciation in 2021, 2022. It got hard to do burrs for a while, and it's still pretty hard to do burrs, but that's a really creative way to actually get into that. That's awesome.
Yeah. So Justin, I'm curious because I get this question a lot actually because I've had a lot of partners in the past. When it comes to structuring your partnerships, what if, and I'm not saying you're giving advice here or anything to anybody, but I'm just curious, what did you do to structure these partnerships? Did you go to an attorney or did you just like share an LLC or did you have a joint venture agreement with these people or did you do a combination of all three? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, there's a couple that I did JV, joint ventures, but those are more like flip transactions through my wholesaling, fix and flip business. In terms of long-term hold, I'm a ready, fire, aim person, which, at Amazon, they had this leadership principle about bias for action. So, every day, like, if I don't do something, that guarantees that I'm going to be at the W-2 longer. So, did I spend a lot of time talking to lawyers and setting it up? No. Here's what I did. I had a lot of experience because I do a lot of deals. Then I was like, registered agents. I found one in Delaware. Delaware registered agents. I use them. I've used other ones as well. They have a LLC. What do they call it? There's this word for it, but basically the bylaws of the LLC. And so I would take theirs, review that with the partner.
Are you talking about operating agreement?
Operating agreement, yes. So we use the stock operating agreement, and we've been operating off of that as we go. And really, the only thing that changed is who does what, how much money is being brought in, and who's managing. Like those are like the three core things. The rest of it is, basically the same for all of them. It's just who's managing, who's bringing the money, and is the key items.
Awesome. I do want to talk about your debt partners a little bit too, because I think that's a fascinating thing. I've done that kind of with Nick on a lot of deals, actually. How are you structuring these things where your people get paid and it's fair for them and it's beneficial for both of you?
Right. So it depends on the risk of the project. On the straightforward ones, like the recent one I'm doing is 10%. For the ones that are more a turnaround project or riskier, they would be 1 to 2 points down, or 2 points, and then generally 10 to 12% interest. And for the most part, it's actually a hassle sometimes to get monthly payments. So luckily, for my lenders, they let me pay them at the end of the deal, and so that way they get all of it at one time. It's easy to reconcile when it's the money comes out and the money comes back. It's easier to calculate their cash on cash return. And for those types of projects, I have kickers in there. Like if I delay, every 90 days from the target date,
Mm-hmm.
I'll drop another point for you so that I'm incentivized to get out of the deal and you get your money back.
It almost works the same as hard money. Obviously, are these people that you're doing the debt partners with? Are they taking any sort of lien on the property as well?
100%. Yep. So you have the note and then you have the lien against the property. So the note is just saying, hey, this is our agreement. I promise to pay you. And then the security instrument, depends on the state. It's called different things, whether it's a mortgage or a lien or whatnot.
Sure.
That is also attached so that they're protected. And once I do the refi, that forces them to be paid out and remove that lien. And then I'm the sole owner after that.
There you go.
Is this a second lien? Are they just helping you with the down payment mostly?
Depends on the scenario. Sometimes they're the third or the fourth.
Okay.
The one that is the recent one, it's all cash purchase. So she's the only lien holder in that scenario.
If somebody is a second position or third position, do you usually pay them a little bit more for being in a riskier position?
Mm-hmm.
Totally. Yep. That's usually comes within the points. Sometimes, for simplicity in discussion, I do just do 12%. If your project is relatively short, the difference between 10 and 12, not that much.
No.
Everyone can calculate 1% per month if you do 12%.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of times I do 12% for that.
Gotcha. So you're telling me I pay people too much?
Yeah.
I've provided a lot of
good.
other value than money. You know
Yeah,
it.
you have. I'm joking.
Yeah.
It's not just you, Jeremy.
Yeah, I know. But Nick and I do like a lot of joint ventures, right? So like I'll use my HELOC to lend on his projects, and he doesn't want to make payments, so we'll do that lump sum at the end, and then I'll promise to come work on the property as well, or whatever else you need. Let's make it happen, just for a percentage of the equity, and that seems to be working out for pretty well for both of us. But you structure your partnerships the way it's beneficial for everybody, and there's a lot of different ways you can make that happen. So
Exactly. And a lot of it's through reps, You do it one way and you're like,
yep.
not that good, because like I'll go back real quick. You're talking about partnership details, and I'll share because what I did on the first ones was everyone's equal partners. Which I was like, okay, now I'm doing all the work, but we're equal.
Yep.
Yeah, been there.
Yes, you have.
Yeah. So then I was like, well, if I have back to your question on, well, how did you pay for the down? Well, then I was like, well, if I have zero down, then okay, now I'm getting a benefit. So my partner would front the money, and then I take the cash flow and pay them back over 2 years, my half. And then I did that on a couple, and then I was like, man, that's still not favoring me for the investment. So then I was like, the money comes in, I have $0 into it, I manage it, and then the first one I did was 80-20, me being 20. If I do another one, it would have to be 50-50. And a lot of people ask me to be partners, and I tell them the terms, and I hold to my standard. If it works for them, great. If it doesn't, no harm, like no big deal.
Right. I think that's great. You absolutely have to stick to your guns. It's hard to not be carried away by like, oh, this could be a big thing, right? And then you just bit off more than you can chew. Your partners aren't performing the way they need to. You stick to your terms, and I think that's really, really smart business. So good for you.
Mm-hmm.
So going forward, like, what do you think your next 5-year plans are, Justin?
Right now, it's kind of bimodal, meaning I have maybe not bimodal, bifurcated. I am getting the cash flow in the Midwest. I'm doing some burrs there, but it's predominantly is all long-term cash flow there. In Seattle, because I'm an agent here, like I'm focused on burr properties in Seattle.
Mm-hmm.
That's where I can make hundreds of thousands in equity. And as an agent and a wholesaler and an investor, just talk to sellers, get deals to where I can either quick cash or equity here, but the long-term cash flow predominantly is going to be out of state.
Gotcha. So you're not really looking for appreciation or anything. You're more looking for cash flow just to kind of get that flow going, correct?
Well, in this bifurcated model, I am getting appreciation on the stuff that I own around Seattle.
Okay, gotcha.
So that does help me, but then I'm getting the cash flow in the Midwest.
So, Justin, I'm curious, when it comes to your real estate agent business, what made you choose to go to Keller Williams Realty versus all the other stupid options?
Well, inherently, that question means that I'm smart, so I like
Yep,
that
yep.
question. When I went in, I interviewed a lot of people. Obviously, the Compasses and the EXP, and then kind of in this area, John L. Scott and Windermere, and then it's more like niche / discount brokers. At the end of the day, when I was talking to the niche and discount brokers, and when I asked about training, they were like, bring us the deal, i.e. the buyer or the listing, right? And then we'll help you there. And I'm like, I don't like this.
Yeah.
How do I get the deal, though?
Yeah. And they're like, oh, it's, low cost. And I'm like, but if I make no money, then like, what's the point? Now, on the flip side, the caps around this area are generally north of 20,000. So it's not a small number. So like, then I was like, well, Keller Williams is known for training, and I want to like take it for what it is. Like, assume that I know nothing. And what I found out is that being a real estate agent is not really about real estate.
Mm-hmm.
It is about sales, and it is about people. And so when I go in all my training, they have Bold and Ignite and a ton of other stuff. I assume that I know nothing, and I soak everything in as I'm a noob. And they have been great at, back to scheduling, I learned that from here. Block out my day for meetings and follow-ups and prospecting. And so, and then the beauty of this office is there's a lot of people here, and I can walk down the hall and talk to them. And like, I have a listing that's like a $3 million listing that's very unique, where obviously I've never listed. So now I can go to somebody in the office and be like, hey, here's this unique property. Do you want to co-list it with me?
Mm-hmm.
So I have like the training and expertise of the people here, and everybody in the office has been very welcoming and helping to build the business,
Nice.
which I just thought, man, this is that. It just reinforced that I made the right decision.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I'm just dumbfounded by all the people that like rush to these cheaper brokerages that don't really even have offices. So you can't, like, as a new agent, like, it's all about people and asking questions. This is a very complicated business. There's a lot of moving parts. There's a lot of different types of properties. It's really nice to have people in an office that you can go to that will help you. I kind of find that the cap that you have to pay is pretty small in comparison to all the value you get every year at these, brokerages. Plus, I mean, if you were to join like a Century 21 or Coldwell Banker, there are no caps at all. So you could, if you're a high producing agent, you could easily spend, $100,000 or $200,000 a year paying these brokerages to have an office over there. So it's kind of nice that it's capped at a small
Right.
number, which some people see that as a big number. I don't really think it is.
That's only 4 deals in my area. So if you're not doing one a quarter, you're probably in the wrong business, or maybe you have a W-2 and that's your side hustle. That's perfect, right? You can make 100K just doing 4 deals, maybe 5 deals in this area.
That's good. Do you have any final thoughts, Nick, before we start winding down with the episode?
No, hey, I appreciate you coming on and telling us what your story's been like so far. Yeah, I know we've got a few more questions to ask you, but yeah, thanks for hanging with us on a Monday morning.
Yeah, absolutely. No, this has been really great, Justin. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day and joining us on the Investor Shed. We are winding down a little bit right now. Do you have any final thoughts before we get to that, by the way, Justin?
I'll leave you with this. And when I was at Amazon, I created a group there called, it used to be Dream, Discussing Real Estate at Amazon Meeting.
Cool, nice.
Rebranded it to Real Estate at Amazon. And so that grew from 0 to basically 1,400 people. And I actually just went back there in January, not physically, but through a video conferencing. And I had one message there, which I would leave the same message here, is that in today's world, you have to take action and build your personal economy such that you are, you should, like, in today's world with all these layoffs, that should be a blessing, right? Take that money that then kicks you off in your own business. So I say all that so that whoever is out listening to this call, if you're remotely interested in real estate, take that action today, because you want to have your personal economy such that you have stability and you don't rely on somebody else. When you can rely on on yourself, you're that man in the mirror. That's where the freedom and the feeling that I have today when I operate, it is worth all that effort. So make sure you're taking that action, not tomorrow, but literally today. When you listen to this podcast, reach out to Jeremy or Nick or myself or any of the past guests that have been on this show, because we love to help people. So reach out to us. We'll help you.
That's awesome, man. That's super good advice. And I'm such a sucker for a good acronym too. DREAM is a really good acronym. That's awesome.
Yeah. Took me a while to figure that one
Acronym
out.
sucker.
Yeah. No, I love acronyms, man. We love acronyms around here, so that's good stuff. Yeah, definitely thank you for showing and sharing that. And I think you are right. Taking action is the one thing a lot of people can do, and a lot of people in this industry are absolutely willing to help you. We'll kind of get into it with some final questions and everything, but go to your local REIs. Just ask questions to investors. Like, I literally ask investors out to coffee. I found myself going to dinner with Brandon Turner like a month ago. I was like, just by being in the right place and asking questions, like, I got to hang out with Brandon Turner for an hour at dinner. It was great. Like, yeah. So we'll kind of wind down with some random questions here, Justin. What is one business or investing book that you recommend every single new investor or experienced investor read?
We talked about the Millionaire Real Estate Agent. Like if you're an agent, obviously that's a good one.
Hmm.
One book, and it's maybe not necessarily business related, but really was the catalyst of what got me here, is The Miracle Morning. And I believe there's a Miracle Morning for real estate investors, I believe now.
There is. I think there's like 20 of them right now. There's a whole
Yeah.
bunch of them. There's for entrepreneurs, real estate agents, investors. It's Hal Elrod does those, right?
Yeah. So I used to be a night owl,
Hmm.
right? 'Cause, like, I mean, at Amazon is not easy. I was grinding 60, maybe, sometimes 80 hours and working late and then go home and then log in again at night, you know, a lot of long hours. And then what I realized is like, I'm not working on me or I'm not physically working out. So when I shifted to that morning routine, that was the boom catalyst because I was spending my most productive hours in the morning on me and myself and I, and that's how you're gonna get there. So, number one book I'd recommend.
I love it. That's a good one for sure. Next one is if you were gifted $30 million in your bank account, what's the first thing you would spend it on?
So this one is I've been thinking about this car for like I don't know 5 years now.
Uh-huh.
It makes absolutely no sense. I don't need it, but I want it. So I want a Dodge Charger, a Hellcat.
Okay.
And
Oh,
then ideally
nice.
the red eye with the wide body. It makes zero sense. I'll get a ticket. But I like because I have a Dodge Charger right now and it has I think around 350 horsepower. And then I'm like it has 707, like double the horsepower. And then if you do the red eye, it's 800 horsepower. And I'm like, my simple brain can't even comprehend it, but I need to own this.
Man, my simple brain can't handle that. I drive a Prius, so like my max speed is 80 on a good day. Like, and the wind has to be pushing me, and I have to be going downhill. But that 50 miles a gallon is pretty nice. So that's awesome. That's a good answer.
I don't know the horsepower. I have a Tesla. It's really fast, but I would like it to make some noise someday because it's just so quiet all the time.
Those, if you ever watch, when I'm trying to go to bed, I'll watch like drag racing with the Hellcat or
Hmm.
the Red Eye. They'll go against Teslas. Teslas usually beat him every time. It's a reaction time, but that's instantaneous. Go power. I don't know if it's. I think it's might be torque and horsepower combined, but
Yeah, it's torque.
in a short term rate, like in a quarter mile, they kill in the quarter mile.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, just their normal sedans.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're crazy. No,
Yeah.
I've driven in your car, and obviously you go pretty fast sometimes, and it makes my stomach turn in all sorts of knots. And that's the power of the Tesla. It's great.
It's gotten me really used to airplane rides. Like when you take off on an airplane, everybody I don't know if before most people kind of feel that queasiness as they're accelerating. And I just don't feel that anymore on planes. So that's the one advantage of having a Tesla is
Nice.
on plane rides, you don't get queasy.
I love it. What advice would you give, Justin, to newer investors looking to get started on their first or their second deal?
Piggybacking on my first thing. So one, take action. Two, start hanging out with people you want to be like. So if you want to be an investor, go to the meetups. Ideally in person. And if you can't, go to the online Zoom type stuff, and just be active consistently, and that will parlay you. Because like if you take any action in isolation, it can be difficult and sometimes discouraging depending on how much money you got to spend. So when you start hanging around, and that's why I personally like. I was saying I was in Thatch Springboard at Walt. I mean that guy's got he's probably 100 million in real estate, and he's super wealthy. And that's where I want to aspire to. So I need to be hanging out with these people and raising up my standards. So take action and be hanging out with the people that you want to be like. And in the investor community, it is amazing how helpful people are. Like I help a lot of people get their first, their second, or whatever property. If they ever reach out, I love doing that. That's like, at the end of the day, money is nice, but if you can help change somebody's life, there's no better feeling than that.
I love that. That's such a good answer. Yeah, yeah. Next question for you, Justin. How do you define success?
That's very interesting. I used to think it was all about money, and I'm definitely transitioning. Just talking about that one about helping people. I'm shifting to more where it's about experiences, whether that's me personally or giving somebody an experience. And one of my my girlfriend and I were talking about like goal setting, and so we want to create a charity centered around giving people opportunities and experiences. So that will, like I'll never stop hustling and trying to make money and do deals because I want to get personally experiences, but fund this charity we want to set up to be able to give people those experiences, whether it's helping them buy investment properties or if they don't have the funds to, if they're a family and they're separated because they're always working. Well, how do we give them money such that they can then have time together? So I'm shifting from all money, money, money to experiences over time.
I love that. That's good. And then when you're not investing, Justin, what do you like to do with your free time?
So right now I'm very active. So what I do is Orange Theory. I'm usually doing that 3-4 times a week. It used to be Peloton, but then I kind of shifted to Orange Theory. I was playing soccer, but I'm not playing right now. I'm on a hockey team right now. And then once the weather warms up, then it'll be getting out and getting a lot of golf. But the goal here for me is like setting up, I kind of always like a carrot out there. The carrot for me is a trip. So like I'm trying to get more trips out there so that I can spend more time vacationing. And if you follow me on Instagram, I bought the Frontier Go Wild Pass, which it's like I think it was like 700, and I can travel anywhere they go for 1 year. And you just have to pay like the airport tax fee.
And that's the one like where you get to you have to kind of make a decision like the day before or whatever on your flight or whatever, right?
24 hours in advance. So if you're going to be somewhere out for more than a day, which is like all of your trips, you can't get the back home route until you land.
Gotcha.
So that'll be a unique experience. So you have to be in a financially stable environment to be like, well, if it's Tuesday, Thursday, or Friday, it doesn't matter, whenever it works, So you have to have some flexibility there.
Yeah, that's awesome. Hopefully that pass works well for you. You're the first person I've heard of that's actually using it, and be interesting how it works out for you for sure. So
to post it on Instagram, it doesn't. So I bought it in like November-ish, I think, and it doesn't actually start until May. So once May rolls around, you'll see I'll be posting on there about it.
Going on some trips. I love it. Last question for you, Justin. Where can people find out more about you, or where can people follow you on social media?
Yep. The number one right now is on Instagram. Predominantly, I have everything under JC Cambra. And then I have W2 to Freedom is on Instagram. And Just Income Streams is another one.
Okay, cool.
My goal here is to create this, because I did graduate from Amazon. You had Craig Curlow on, right?
Yep.
Recently. So he talked about he didn't retire, he graduated, right? So in my mind, it's like W2 to Freedom is about graduating into your next life. And so I want to build a brand around that. So you'll see more of that coming around, specifically around Instagram in the near future.
Awesome. Very good. Nick, any final thoughts?
Man, I want to get on that plane pass ride.
Yeah.
I've heard of somebody else using it, and they used the crap out of it a couple of years ago. So it sounds like fun. $700? That's it?
700 intro, and then if you're new, and then I think it's 2,000-ish, 2,100, something like that, long term.
Yeah, if you're taking a lot of trips, absolutely worth it. So pretty cool
Right.
stuff.
All right. Well, thank you very much. Appreciate you being on.
Yeah, man, absolutely. Thanks so much for being here. We really enjoyed the conversation, and you provide a lot of cool value for our listeners. So definitely thanks so much for doing that.
Not a problem. Thanks, Nick. Thanks, Jeremy.
Yeah, man, thank you.
Absolutely. See ya. Bye.
Thank you so much for checking out the Investor Shed podcast. If you enjoyed your time, make sure to leave a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Follow along on YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram at The Investor Shed for shorts and promos about each episode. Do you want to be a guest or know someone who has great real estate investing advice and stories? Reach out to us at theinvestorshed@gmail.com.